Morning. We're going to talk today about read alouds and how important they are in the classroom. I think pretty traditionally they've been discussed and done in primary and elementary classrooms. There's been a big push in the last 5 years or so to have more read alouds done in secondary classrooms. It's important to do read alouds beginning in infancy all the way through high school, through our secondary schooling. For many reasons. Read alouds help to increase engagement and motivation to read. It helps introduce content vocabulary for our students. It enhances and delivers and develops background knowledge for our kids. It can serve as a catalyst for discussion. It helps you to model and teach strategies, especially if you're a content area teacher here. You may not have time to sit down and really explicitly teach a reading strategy, but you can model these strategies and be delivering content at the same time through the use of a read aloud. Helps to develop the joy and the love of story, and read alouds can also help build awareness and empathy. And for this project, you are going to be selecting a book. It can be a short novel or a picture book that will provide your students with some content knowledge. If you're a biology teacher or a history teacher, or a math teacher, you can certainly focus on content there. You can also select a book for the love of story. Look at I've linked the culturally specific awards for you and some general awards as well. So take a moment and look through some of these books. If you have time, the best thing to do would really be to copy and paste some of the books from the page on the ALA site. Let's see, I'm going to select the Belpre Award. If you're looking at the award winners for that year, they've got a very, very short description. But if you look at past winners, they don't have a description. So you can copy and paste the text if the title looks like something that might work in your classroom into an Amazon page, and it will give you a better explanation. Blackout is about the city losing power, and everyone has to put their devices down, and they go and look up at the sky and they play board games, and there's a block party down going on. So a fun book, but also one you could use if you were talking about electricity. Bomb, if maybe you're teaching a chemistry class. This talks about atoms and the beginning of the atomic bomb. Bodies from the Ice, maybe you're teaching different eras, and it talks about how they find bodies that were 5,000 years old. It is pretty interesting. But just kind of look through, find something that might work for you to do what you want to do. I selected, let's see, where is it? Separate is Never Equal, which is a fascinating story. And it centers on Sylvia Mendez right here. Her parents fight for the desegregation of some California schools. And the interesting thing about this case is it was done in 1947, which was several years, 7 years, I believe, before the Brown versus Board case. And it was actually cited as a case as a decision in the landmark Brown court case. So interesting in that it laid some of the groundwork in the subsequent Brown versus Board case. And this book tells the story of Sylvia's father moving into Westminster, California. The aunt goes to enroll her two girls, who are also of Mexican descent, but their father's last name was French. And they had lighter hair and lighter skin. So when the aunt goes to take them to enroll in school, the secretary, she takes all 5 kids. The secretary says, well, your children can enroll, and here's the forms, but these kids, they need to go to the Mexican school down the street. And so the aunt gets very angry and takes all of them out of the school. And this really bothers Sylvia because the white school is beautiful. It's got beautiful trees lining the streets, and there's playgrounds, and the Mexican school is a shanty. It's got a cow pasture out back. They have to eat their lunch with flies all around. There is no playground equipment. So just even looking at the 2 different schools, there's a ton of disparities. And then there's also some would argue even more important issue of these children are being taught how to be maids and how to sew, and these children they have to focus on academics. So huge issues of inequity here. Big conversation points. With tying this book, part of what you have to do for your book talk is think about how the book can be, and creating your handout, is think about how the book can be used in your classroom for curricular integration. And if you were teaching, this could be used in several grade levels. If you were teaching 5th grade, this could be used in a civil rights unit, talking about Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. Students could think about parallels between these 2 cases. This one happened in California. Brown versus Board was Kansas. World War II plays into this actually as well, because the farm that the Mendez family leased was a Japanese man's farm, and the Japanese man had to lease his farm because he was being put in an internment camp. And this was obviously World War II time period. So the Japanese man takes his family. They have to move to the internment camp. He leases the farm to the Mendez family, and all of this starts to go down. So you've got that title, World War II. In U.S. history in high school, the standards ask you to compare social policies. So you could think about and civil rights legislation. So you could think about how this plays into that. With U.S. government, you have to think about the role of government on civil rights. The Mendez family, they take this to the court when they're told they can't have their children in the school. They go all the way up to the court. There's a photograph, an illustration in the book where it says there's children in a pool, and the sign says no Mexicans or dogs allowed. So just the imagery here and grouping people with animals, it makes for some great conversation. In U.S. government, think about how civil rights and civil liberties influence American political culture. So this could be used not only in elementary, but also as a catalyst or a jumping off point for some of these heavier topics. Can get conversation started. So 2 to 3 ways to use the book in the classroom. I could talk, if I focus on 5th grade here, just to think about how this could be used. We can obviously, as I said, talk about civil rights and Brown versus Board. We can look at geography and the location of these 2 court cases. We can talk about developing empathy. We can look at segregation and how segregation is beginning to increase again. And you can have students go to the National Center for Education Statistics website and have them pull the stats for their own school. What is the breakdown with, are we 58% African American, 30% American Indian? Go through and look and have them have some conversations, pull up some other schools from the same district. And you can pull in math that way with the percentages. So separate is never equal. Let's see, I took a picture of my planning document. As you pull a book and you start to look at it, take some notes about how you might be able to use it in the classroom what you think about the text. Look it up on YouTube. Part of what I'm asking you to do is to include a QR code for, I'm going to go to YouTube, for how you can use this in the classroom, but also some ways that you could introduce the text to your students. So I'm going to type in, spelled it wrong, separate is never equal. If you type in book trailer, it will take you to some book trailers that have been done, obviously. This is one that you could look at. You'll notice this was probably done with iMovie. There's music in the background, but it's mostly text. There was another really neat interview that I watched with Sylvia Mendez that I would definitely want to include in my handout because I think it would be great for students to see. Here it is. Who the story was based on, as well as it'd be good for teachers. The same bus,
the other twin, and they would drop us off in front of the white school, this beautiful manicured lawn school with palm trees and a wonderful playground right there in the front with swings, and then we had to walk to the...
I think it's helpful to see the actual photographs as well, and they do include some photographs at the very end of the picture book. Sylvia Mendez won the Presidential Medal of Freedom, so she's got
Mexican school.
She discusses that a little bit in here.
The school books were all handed down, so they'd be torn, and we were being taught how to be good maids. We were being taught how to clean, how to sew, how to quilt.
There's another great clip I watched on the case. And then you've got right here, that's the actual text read aloud if you wanted to read the story. Let's see, let's try Mendez. Sylvia, let's put all our words in and see if my little clip that I watched the other day comes back up. It was a really good story. It was very short, but it was a news clip that California had done. Just talking about the influence of the court case on California education and the impact of this family and this group on the education rights of many. So really, really fascinating. We're running out of time, so really fascinating book that you would be able to use in many different ways. With this project, try and go outside of your comfort zone. If you're a chemistry teacher and you wouldn't typically use literature to teach your content area, try and find a piece of literature. Try and find something that you could use to, the first 5 minutes of every class to read to your students and get them hooked or interested in your topic. If you are an elementary school teacher and you've got your read alouds that are tried and true and you haven't branched out in a while, look at some of these culturally specific awards and see if you can find something that examines a facet of your curriculum from a new lens and broadens your students' horizons so that they can think about it in a different way, in a different light. Let me know if you have any questions about this, and I will see you pretty soon.